Many say the Testarossa was Ferrari's answer to the radical and innovative Lamborghini Countach. The aggressive squared-off body lines, iconic side strakes, combined with the roar of the flat 12 mid-mounted engine became the status quo for high-end exotics in the wild 80s. Ferrari unveiled the Testarossa to the public on October 2, 1984 in Paris, and it was an instant hit. And to prove its instant success on the first day in public, Ferrari took 37 orders right then and there. The success of the Testarossa continues to this day, with the cars seeming to become more desirable with each passing year. To prove what an instant success the Testarossa was, even though it was unveiled in 1984, it didn't actually come to the US and make US models of the car until about the mid-1985. And when you ordered one new, there was about a 2 to 3 year wait time before you actually got your car delivered. And so many people wanted the Testarossa that they would even try and bring them into the US before they were allowed in. So in that gray market kind of import, about 100, 150 Testarossas were imported as Euro models into the US under that kind of gray market, and basically people would just hope that customs didn't catch them, which was a risk, but some of the cars did make it in. One of the reasons that the Testarossa has gone up in value and desirability so much is the generational shift that we're seeing in today's market. If you think of, say, my dad's generation of car buyers, they were born in the 40s and 50s. The poster on their wall would have been one of the 250 series Ferraris or 275. And for me and my generation, people in their 30s and 40s, these cars of the 80s and 90s were really the poster cars. So the Testarossa, the Lamborghini Countach, those were the cars that kids my age really wanted and sought after. And now that they've come to an age where they're more in the market, we're seeing these cars go up in value and sell a lot quicker than they used to. The Testarossa was not Ferrari's very first mid-engine 12-cylinder Ferrari. That was actually the 365 BB and then the 512 BB in the 70s. But both of the different Boxer variants were not made for the US market. Neither the 365 nor the 512 BB could come to the US at all. And it was really limiting the market for Ferrari in the US because there really was no 12-cylinder Ferrari that they were selling here. They took the basic concept from the Boxer, which has the flat 12-cylinder engine, and they made some improvements for the cooling and the cabin and overall comfort and designed the Testarossa. And it really is such a perfect combination. And so they took an already awesome car, but made it available to a worldwide market, and they fixed some of the problems that the Boxer had and created the stunning and aggressive body styling of the Testarossa that fit just perfectly into the era when it was produced. If you think about having to compete with a car like the Countach, it's hard to come up with something that could try and rival it, but somehow with the Testarossa, Ferrari came up with the perfect car. Now, I have done a few videos on Testarossas before, so in each video I want to talk about something a little different and give different details and info. If I missed anything in this video, I'm sure I'll have more information and details that you might be interested in hearing in some of the other videos I've done on Testarossas. This Testarossa was actually not the first Ferrari to be named Testarossa. The name Testarossa actually means redhead in Italian, and that name comes from the valve covers being painted red on both the modern day Testarossas as well as the 250 Testarossas that were built in the 50s. Now, the 50s Testarossas were more of the standard of that time Colombo V12 60-degree engine. But for this car, for the modern Testarossa series, they decided to lay out the engine in a flat 180-degree 12-cylinder layout, because it has the same basic engine as the Boxer with some improvements. The Boxer engine, people say, well, it's not a Boxer engine because of the firing order of the cylinders and the pistons and how they move. If you want to get technical, it is a 180-degree flat 12 engine, but it's just simpler to call it a Boxer engine. The three main buying tips I would give to anybody in the market for a car like this would first be to decide which model you want. There were three variations of the Testarossa. The initial one, like the one behind me, then the 512TR and the 512M. And with each variation, they did make some mechanical and cosmetic improvements to the car to just make them a better driving experience. With each car they produced, they did less production, which makes them more rare and much more valuable. Out of the roughly 10,000 built in total, about 7,000 were the initial Testarossa, then about 2,500 were the 512TR, and only 501 were the 512M. That makes the 512M, and of the 512M, there was only 75 ever delivered new to the US. So that makes those cars probably about 5 times more valuable than your initial Testarossa. And if you're looking for the most collectible and basically the best example, the most long-term potential for increase in value, then the 512M is a good candidate. But if you want just a good driving car that you can enjoy and really not worry as much about miles and all the little details, then a Testarossa or even a 512TR would probably be a better option. My second main buying point is you want to check the service history on these cars, and that goes for pretty much any Ferrari or any classic car you're going to buy. You want to know the service history, but it's especially important in something like a Testarossa because they are notoriously expensive when it comes to servicing them. So I've gone into detail on it in other Testarossa videos before, but basically they have cam belts that need to be changed every 5 to 7 years or so, and it's a very labor-intensive process because the whole engine and rear end has to come out the bottom of the car. You want to make sure that if you're looking at one of these cars and it hasn't had a recent cam belt service, you want to give yourself at least about 15 grand in expected service costs. If you have two cars that are very similar, but one's had a service and one hasn't, then that's kind of the price difference you want to look for and have taken off a car that hasn't been serviced, just so you can make that money up. You know you're going to be spending that. My third and final buying point on these cars is the myth of low miles. So it really depends what you're going for, and what you really want out of a car you buy will depend on whether you really care about low miles or not. If you're buying the 512M because it's the least produced out of all the Testarossa series, then you might want a super low mile car, especially if you don't plan on driving it much. If you want a car that you can really enjoy, it's not really worth spending the extra money for a 5,000 or 9,000 mile car because you're just going to devalue it as you add the miles. So you've paid a premium that you're going to basically lose as you drive and enjoy the car. So it's better to buy something with more kind of average miles, maybe the 20,000 mile range. Not only does that help reduce any impact of adding miles on the car, but also these cars were meant to be driven. So if you find one of these cars that has 1,000 miles on it and has just sat in a garage for the last 20 years, that's really cool, and that can be a very collectible car. But as the car sits, all the rubber gets hard and rotten, and basically everything deteriorates, all the rubber at least deteriorates in the car. You're gonna have to spend even more money on the service in order to get it into a good driving condition. And then when you do drive it, you'll devalue it a bit. So sometimes that good sweet spot of average miles, the car has been driven and loved, but maintained so that you know everything isn't all old and cracking, is usually the best option if you're looking for that kind of driver quality car. I think it's fair to say that the Lamborghini Miura really kicked off that time of crazy, wild, and kind of out there designs that just took an instant hit in the automotive world. I mean, it was such a success right from the start. And so every company had to come out with something to try and one up the other. And in the 80s, Ferrari definitely dominated with the Testarossa. It just set the automotive world on fire and became the poster car for so many kids around the world. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and learned a little something about the Testarossa. If you like this, then please subscribe and stay tuned because we got a lot more content coming very soon.